Okay, so it is 7 o'clock, and I will call the April 12th, 2021 school board meeting to order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I know Anita is not here, so Stacy, could you do the roll call, please?
Would you like someone to do this by microphone?
Sure, we could have, Brian, would you mind doing the roll call?
Sure.
It must be on your agenda, if you have that in front of you.
Yep, Trenton David Hoosman. Gary Dunlap.
Here.
Cheryl Hancock.
Here,
Anita J. Gazinski.
she is excused.
Chris Lau. Here. Rebecca Reber.
Here.
Barb Wettstein.
Here.
And Brian Wolpett, I am here.
Okay, with 6 of the 7 school board members present, I would declare a quorum. Approval of the agenda. I would note that the agenda has been posted, distributed, and sent to the local, shared with the local media. With this in mind, are there any changes? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? If none, okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Then we will move on to the first item, which is public participation, and I do have a couple people interested in speaking tonight. I would just remind everyone, according to our rules and the state rules, we aren't able to respond to any comments that are made, any information that may be asked, even if questions are asked, that may be able to be done later, depending on what is on the agenda. We have a 5-minute time limit. Stacy, would you help us with timing? And then I would just start with Jennifer Wesley, if you come forward. State your name, your address, and you can take your mask off when you're at the microphone.
Jennifer,
It works.
Jennifer, I guess.
Jennifer Wesley, N8730 Garfield Road in Holmen. Good evening, school board members, and special congratulations to Chris Lau and Jennifer Deek in narrowly defeating me in the school board race. It's my hopes and the hopes of the entire community that you will add good faith to the school board and support the best quality education for our Holmen students. I also want to extend a special congratulations to Emily Zack for earning the student representative position. You school board members are sure to be impressed by Miss Zack. Tonight, I'm going to talk really fast because there's a lot I want to say and I don't have enough time. So bear with me and try to keep up. Tonight, I want to talk about the district's mass requirement, but before I get into that, I want to outline something that I would first like to reflect on comments of a school board president following the school board election. On April 8th, Mrs. Hancock made a Facebook post to quickly congratulate Deacon Lau and then used the remainder of her post to call attention to why she was relieved with the candidates that were elected, as opposed to one of the candidates that was not. To paraphrase Mrs. Hancock's post, she congratulates Lau and Deacon moves to write, in quote, "In recent months, the board and administration have been told by one candidate supporter that they were moving in the wrong direction and that their voices represent a majority of the district's residents," end quote. Then she writes, quote, "While it exposed some troubling beliefs, it is what makes our democracy the best in the world," end quote. Mrs. Hancock, I'm not sure why you had to be discreet about which candidate you were referring to, or perhaps what was the tactic to call more attention to your intention. While you were at it, why didn't you refer to a more specific supporter of mine? Was it one specific supporter, or perhaps a few, or perhaps a group of parents like the Holmen Parents United for In-Person Learning that is now up to 435 members? When you refer to this election as having exposed some troubling beliefs, but you don't specify what that means, should I interpret that exposed troubling beliefs equals people disagree with you? Is that your idea of the best democracy? Mrs. Hancock, as the president of the school board, I'm suggesting that you practice higher standards of how you present yourself in public and how you refer to people that stick their neck out in running for school board position. You may think it's an easy task because you've been doing it for so long and your name has just become routine of being on a ballot, but you've shown no consideration for how hard I and the other candidates worked during this campaign, and you show zero amount of compassion for what I would have brought to the table should I had just 280 more votes. Your statement will make more intimidating for others who even consider to run for school board, but perhaps that is what you're aiming to do. That ends my address of that topic. Next, I want to talk about the unlawfulness of requiring students and staff of the district to wear face masks. The school board policy titled School Safety Program was last revised on September 21st of 2020, which can be found on the district website. I'm limited in my time here, so I prefer to reserve my time to make my point rather than read the policy to you. Whether or not you state that a mask or a face covering is a medical device, you can't deny the fact that you're requiring someone to place a barrier over their mouth and nose, both cavities of our body that are most important to oxygen supply. The theory behind the mask requirement is to reduce spread of virus, a very clear medical reason for the mask requirement. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it is my parental right to determine medical decisions for my children, is it not? We are no longer under a state mandate, nor a county mandate, nor a local mandate, so how can the school mandate the mask wearing requirement? Currently, our students are being required to wear them not only indoors, but also outdoors. They are allowed to remove them for eating and drinking. They eat and drink among others, and from what we understand of COVID-19 is that it spreads through respiratory droplets. If I were to make an analogy about the logic of wearing face masks in some instances, but not others, I would compare it to having a peeing section in a public school, kind of like me standing right here without a mask on. As of this afternoon, there were 3 active cases of COVID-19 in our district. We are masking healthy students and staff while a policy indicates that some may have medical exemptions. It seems preempt that those that are medically vulnerable should be the ones encouraged to wear the mask or receive their right to a free and public education from the available virtual learning opportunities. I will close with this. On Saturday, I watched my daughter play soccer with a mask on for a solid hour of running. I would challenge any one of you board members to give that a try. At the end of the game, all the girls were completely winded and spent. Again, this isn't my right to determine if my child should wear a medical device. Free our kids from the health tyranny. We're making kids wear masks for a virus that has a survival rate of over 99.9%. Since I have a couple seconds left, I'll go on to list 10 Wisconsin schools that have dropped their mask mandate, and it is now optional. Abbotsford, Cameron, Crandon, Frederick, Leona, Luck, Manitowoc, Lutheran, Mondovi, Paris, and 3 Lakes. For the rest of the parents, I would encourage you to think about the mask protocols that will be coming up in prom, senior banquet, and graduation. That's it.
Thank you. Next person to speak is Emily Zack.
My name is Emily Zack, and I'm a junior at Holmen High School. During my campaign for student representative for the Holmen High School, I ran on the basis of doing everything I can to advocate for all the students here at Holmen High School. That's what got me here, the student representative, coming here to tell you, the board, that our students have let a lot of things slide, but something that almost every student at Holmen wants and won't let go of is breakfast during advisory. I became very interested in this subject after a teacher asked me how I could possibly make you all listen to me talking about advisory breakfast. Why would you all care? Well, my question is, why wouldn't you? Is it the goal of teachers, this board even, to advocate for every student who comes through this school district, even the ones who don't have the luxury of a healthy, filling breakfast at home before school? I've talked to students who agree, and even the lunch ladies agree, that having breakfast during advisory would be beneficial to many. For some students, they get off the bus only 10 minutes before school starts, or students who have to drop their siblings off at other schools and rely on the breakfast that the school offers for free to keep them full until lunch. And our athletes, like myself, lift from 6 to 7 a.m. every weekday and have a very small time to shower, get all their stuff put in lockers, and get a breakfast. Many of these athletes even would get breakfast before school, during advisory, and lunch with snacks throughout the day. Without getting to eat snacks in between classes and that breakfast, having a practice after school is really hard to do without a lot of energy fueling them throughout the day. Even students have the latest lunch at 12:45. That's a pretty late lunch if you're not able to fuel your body throughout the day with a breakfast and snacks. I've heard this topic is currently getting discussed since there are so many students, and even our own lunchroom staff have been pushing for this. The best idea to keep everyone safe, since there is no eating in classrooms, of course, this is easily prevented by a very spacious lunchroom we have now. Teachers could write passes to the lunchroom for the students who take advantage of this breakfast time, because there are still many students who can eat when they first get to school or at home, but unfortunately it's not a privilege for all students at Holmen. My teacher argued once again that advisory time should be used for more important things like meeting with teachers or doing homework. But is keeping kids full until lunch not a priority? Does it not improve brain function? Does it not give your body energy for a full school day? The food provided at schools are sometimes the only meals some kids get a day. Once again, this doesn't apply to all students, but I'm here today advocating for all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Next person is Lauria Bate. Sorry, Abeda.
That's how I figure out who this listing calls are. Hi, my name is Lauria Bate. I live on 210 State Street in Holmen. I have lived here since 2002. My children, some of my children have attended Holmen High School. What I want to talk about today is the masking of our children. And the reason I am concerned about this is because I have grandchildren that are coming up, entering into the school system. The anxiety of the young children has risen to an unbelievable level all around us. It's unnatural. A parent shared that her 10-year-old daughter complains of headaches and depression and no longer wants to go to school because of the mask she has to wear. Another parent of a 12-year-old is scared to enter into a store and touch anything without a mask. Her older daughter, who attends here Holmen High School, said school is depressing. Everyone wears masks. In class, nobody talks. Nobody talks in the hallways. Nobody talks to each other in the lunchroom. That, to me, is very disturbing. What is also very disturbing was one time I was walking my dogs by Viking Elementary, where they have an after-school daycare, and a few boys ran up to me and asked me if they could pet my dogs. One of the boys was breathing so hard that his mask was getting sucked into his mouth. He said, "Excuse me, I have to go over here to breathe." And he runs 20 feet away, pulls down his mask, and is gasping for air. I thought this was disturbing. I see 4- and 5-year-olds running around on the playground with masks, not able to see the facial expressions of their peers or teachers when it's an important part of their development. I found out recently that a 6th grader in Onalaska Middle School committed suicide. Suicide has skyrocketed amongst elementary, middle school, and high school students. And we have to ask ourselves, why? We are risking losing more of our children to suicide for a virus that most people have a 99% chance of recovery. The schools that have already removed the face mask mandate were mentioned, but in these schools, there is a new energy, new life, and new joy. These masks have sucked the natural joy that our children have. My children used to love to go to school, not just for the learning aspect, but to see and socialize with their friends, which is part of their development. I would like to ask the board to reconsider the unmasking of the children of the Holmen School District and consider the long-term damage if it is not. Again, for the virus, of which we now know most of us have a 99% chance of recovering. There are those who would like to continue to wear a mask, and that should be their option. I agree that it should be a family's decision for their children to whether or not they should wear a mask. I am not seeing anything good about it with the children that I see around me. It has gotten our children to be scared of being around other people. It's blocking their ability to read facial expressions, which is a very, very important part of their development. So I would like the board to please consider removing the face mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. And then next is Tony Zack.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tony Zack. I'm at 808 Winchester Lane in Holmen, Wisconsin. I, too, express the same feelings that the last speaker said, and Jen Wesley. It is time to drop this face mask stuff. Look at all of us. We're all sitting around 6 feet apart, wearing masks, and apparently the whole deal is if we have social distancing, we should be safe. And we're all sitting here with masks on. I can't see the facial expressions on anybody in here, and I'm hoping some are smiling, others are giving me that deer-in-the-headlight look that Tony Zack showed up to a board meeting for the first time in 20 years since he's lived here. But anyway, like Mrs. Wesley said, there are a lot of schools out there that have already dropped this mandate. The state of Wisconsin struck down this mandate on March 31st, and it is time to remove this mask and see the smiling expressions that we have on our children's faces so they can start socializing like they should, School is not just there to teach them the stuff that you find in the books, but it's also trying to figure out how they can socially interact with each other. And when we wear this thing on our face, it is not helping them at all. So there's all sorts of other things that I'd love to get into. I don't prepare all sorts of fancy speeches and things like that. I usually like to speak off the cuff. And if I don't have enough notes, I'm probably going to say something I shouldn't have. So thank you very much, everybody, for what you do as sitting on this board. I sat on the village board for 4 years, so I know how much work it takes to be on these boards. I also want to congratulate the new board members that are coming in, and that beautiful young lady that spoke earlier, my daughter, Emily Zack, for her position that she picked up as well as student representative. So thank you all very much. In all due respect, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, that concludes public participation. Then moving on to recognition and thank you. Dr. Mueller.
Yeah, I have a few of those tonight. I would like to start with congratulating our Diverse Cultural Alliance group of students at the Holmen High School. They were recognized by the Black Student Leaders of Lacrosse for being an ally to students in fighting for equality. Logan Steindorf accepted the award on behalf of the group at a recent event. So congratulations for them and their work. Also, would like to recognize we have many volunteers that have helped in our district and continue to help, and just would like to take time, and we need to thank those volunteers. It is National Volunteer Recognition Week this next week, the 18th through the 24th. So thank you to the many volunteers for all that they do. Then also, we want to thank our friends and family of Holmen High School class of 2012 for their donations towards the Cassandra Strand as a memorial. In her name, Cassie's loved ones have donated $1,460 to the special education programs of Holmen High School, Holmen Middle School, and Viking Elementary. Thank you for their thoughtfulness and generosity in sharing those funds for us within the district in her memory. So thank you. Then, this evening, this is our meeting where this is the last meeting for a couple of our members here tonight. One being our student representative in that, and another a board member. So, first, I'd like to kindly thank Trenton David Huseman for his commitment and service to our board. It was a very unusual year. He definitely got experiences more than many of our other student representatives. And he was actually able to attend 2 board meetings in person due to the pandemic. So we are very thankful for his dedication in providing the student voice and his perspectives at the board table. So with that, Trenton, we have something for you and I'd like you to come up and thank you.
So there's just a certificate and a small just recognition of our appreciation for you. So we're going to do a photo, so. And usually I'm a hugger, so I can't tonight. So. Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. There we go.
Thank you, congratulations.
My mom would want me to make sure I take a picture.
Well, we got it taken care of for Mom. There you go.
I'm sure it will show up someplace online.
And then, as we had learned earlier, Barb Wettstein is actually going to be moving to a different area, location in our Cooley region, and not being able to serve any longer on our board. We're so thankful for her service since April of 2018. Has been a great asset. It's brought many great ideas to our table and asked really good questions when we needed questions asked. So we just thank her for her selflessness, her dedication, just her perspective on things and her hard work. So, Barb, thank you so much for all your time here and serving our community.
Thank you. So we want to do a picture as well.
Sure.
Again, just a small token of our appreciation.
Nice. I thought you won that. I thought so.
Oh,
No, it's for you.
and from Wesley.
Oh, yeah.
It's been such a pleasure getting to know you.
So if we could just thank the 2 of them for everything they did. right. With that, I'm going to exit so Beth can join you.
Okay, moving on. And I would ask, Mr. Zack, I know you disagree with the mask mandate, but if you would, out of respect for... Okay, thank you. So moving on to reports and discussion, we will start with the bus bid results. Beth Hobbs.
Hello, Board. Beth Hobbs, Director of Transportation. First time I got to say that. So we're buying 2 new propane buses within the budget of next year, my 21-22 budget. So I'm putting bids in so we get those in at the end of the summer, ready for school. There was 2 bus companies that bid, Wisconsin Bus and Mid-States. Wisconsin Bus does Bluebird buses and Mid-States does International buses. So the bus bid that we want to go with is with our Wisconsin Bus, with each bus costing $100,315. They've gone up about $8,000 each. There's new motors in these, new engines in these. They are smaller, so they are better energy efficient, and we should get better gas propane miles out of them. So that was one of the things, and now they have a stability, traction stability that are built into the buses for better safety. So with that, it would be $160,000 that we have in our budget from the referendum funds, and then an additional to cover it'll cost, the total will be $200,630 out of the budget for next year.
And that is on tonight's consent agenda.
Correct. And that'll bring us up to 14 propane buses of our 41 buses in our fleet. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then, I know we have a lot of bid kind of things. We've seen some of the first presentations on these. This is just the second. Most of them are on, be on tonight's agenda, and some may not. So this is about the Sand Lake boiler replacement bid. Mr. Daly.
Yes, and this will not be on the consent for tonight, but at your next board meeting. So the boilers are scheduled to be replaced at Sand Lake Elementary. The building and boilers are 21 years old. We will be replacing them with condensing boilers, which is really important because that means we can, the boilers we have in currently have to run at 160 to 180 degrees. You can't use them at all when it gets relatively warm because the building heats up. And so when we use condensing boilers, we can actually make we can actually air condition and dehumidify better with a little bit of heat in the lines and getting that moisture out. So it'll be an upgrade. It'll be actually much more efficient to run. So these boilers, to replace them with some new pumps, is $180,381. We received, I think, 5 bids on this. You should have a bid tab in front of you, and the low bid was Hengel Brothers Mechanical. So we're going to be recommending them to accept that bid to replace these this summer at Sand Lake Elementary. This will be paid for from the sinking fund, which we established when we had the referendum for the building back in 1998. Just for this reason, just to be able to have the funds available when we needed to replace equipment and infrastructure within that building. So, any questions on that?
Any questions? Okay, does not appear to. Thank you.
And the other
Are you here for the colonnade? So the next thing is the
Yes.
Empire Stadium colonnade bid results, which is on tonight's agenda.
I do have something on the, it's actually on the, it's on the desktop. Right here. Thank you. All right. So I did put a little PowerPoint together for this one, just because right there, right? There. So I just wanted to have some pictures available so you see what we're talking about here. These colonnades, again, were built the same time as Sand Lake as part of the 1998 referendum for the high school edition. During its a little bit of history, we started having problems with these colonnades within 7 or 8 years of construction. We repaired them back in '07 with the original architect involved in the original contractor. Resealed them again sometime later. You see I put down 2014-ish. We did that, and here's what's happening now. This is one of the piers. This is another one. Big crack on this one. This is the monument out front. So as you can see, they become unstable, unsafe. Some of that has to do, most of it has to do with just the weathering, the leakage of water, freeze-thaw cycle. But recently, with the road construction out there, the construction to the addition and such, a lot of vibration going on. We could stand out there. I know Wayne was out there one day, and you could just feel the ground shaking. So these colonnades needed to be replaced. We received a couple of bids on this. You can see the total cost for us for this will be $304,000 for the project. Markin and Johnson was the low bid on this one. We're asking this one to be approved tonight because we want to be able to finish this project before the end of the fiscal year, before the end of June. And this will be funded through the referendum dollars for the high school edition. Any other questions? I can't think of anything else I want to say about that.
Okay, any questions? Brian?
I do have one. What improvements will be made to the or to the replacement to ensure that it doesn't do the same thing over time?
We got a different design. One of the things we'll be doing, rather than the face block that's just stacked on one of another around a pier, we will actually be facing it with brick, which is much easier to be able to control the moisture behind it. They run wicks. That moisture will come through behind the brick and wick out at the bottom. The idea was we wanted to do a better job in the initial construction on this one to make them last so much longer than the last ones. My memory is not perfect, but it seemed to me when we initially we had an option at that time when we initially built it to have a brick face, but with this other one because it was cheaper and fit into the budget better, I think. I kind of recall that. I don't know if Cheryl, you recall that, but.
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember.
Yeah, but I think initially it was, we had an option to do brick and just decided not to do that. So the construction is going to be different.
Any other questions?
Good question, though.
It was, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Daly.
Director.
And that is on this evening's agenda. So Chromebook bid results. Keith Johnson is coming forward.
So yeah, I'm Keith Johnson. So I guess kind of like the first item I have tonight is the Chromebook bids. So recently we went out for an RFP to replace some of our Chromebooks for our one-to-one program. So we're looking for 625 new Chromebooks. These would be purchased with the one-to-one referendum fund. And so currently the item we're looking at is from bidder one, so CDW, which also has a state contract for us. We are looking at option 2, which is the most expensive, but part of that is with the goal to make sure it's future-proofed and we can actually get the time span out of it that we're looking to accomplish. One other issue we're kind of getting prepared for with the other options too is just with the pandemic, there's been a lot of like supply and demand concerns, so we want to leave it a little open for options just to make sure we can at least get a usable product by the school year. Any questions on item 1
Any questions?
on Chromebooks?
And this is on tonight's consent agenda, so if there are any questions, now would be a good time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, then the high school video wall bid results.
Yes, so we are asking to put up a video wall in the high school gym as part of the construction budget. So we are looking to team up with DNA AV integrators or audio architects out of Chippewa Falls, who the district has a strong working relationship with and they've been very good to us. We are looking at, so it would be bidder 10, option 1 on this bid tabulation, so it would be the cost of $57,620.90, which is also the lowest cost on this, which also meets our requirements that were put out in the RFP. So part of the reason too we're looking for the construction budget is because we're also looking to this video wall to help support overflow into the gym for different activities, to work with the CTE students so they could like show the work they've been doing on this screen. And this is also on tonight's agenda.
Okay, any questions related to this? Brian?
Yes. Video wall, is that kind of like just the screen that comes out from the top of the ceiling? Or is it an actual like TV?
So it's essentially like a whole bunch of like specialized TVs that get mounted right up next to each other to make one great big display.
So will it be, because it'll be mounted in the gym, will it have some type of a case over it to protect it from flying balls?
So we are also, as a separate part of this project, so not in this bid exactly, to have like a net to go over the front of it that can be retracted to help protect it from random baseballs or footballs or soccer balls.
Would this be located in the same place where the projector screen goes down? Would it just replace that?
So it would be, if I'm remembering the gym correctly, that's kind of the one that faces the commons, or the wall that's next to the commons.
The one that's next to it?
Yeah, so it would be along that wall. I know so it would be left to the basketball hoop by where like that great big Viking boat is the main plan.
Other questions?
Yes.
Is it used for a scoreboard? Is it used for classroom? What is it?
So it could be used for multiple functions, whether it be showing a presentation in the gym, or it could be used for advertising during a sports game, or pretty much anything like a projector could be used for like this. It could be used for that.
And thanks, Keith, you're doing an awesome job. I just wanted to mention, so one of the things that has come to light, because we were in the process of replacement of that projector in the gym and the screen anyways, and that was built into our budget for the referendum. And then we further found integration into the commons area of that video board on those screens. But the CTE course, Mr. Zack informed us that there's 2 sections of TV productions in CTE, and what they do is they can develop different kinds of shows and different things that can be displayed on that board during events with the community or for school and so on. So it could be definitely used as an instructional type of learning experience, which we got, when we were up in Eau Claire, we saw that and had a conversation with them there, and a lot of the parents afterwards came up and asked me and said, we should do something like that in Holmen, and not knowing that we were kind of in the works of something similar at the time, so, yeah.
And this is all within the budget from the referendum.
Yeah, as to why, usually we don't bring something in consent on the same with this is within the budget. We didn't want to bring something like this forward unless we knew we had dollars left within the budget, as we did prioritization throughout our whole project very carefully. And knowing the multiple uses that we have learned over time and knowing that we have the dollars, in the timing, we have to not only bring it forward and get it consented on and then get it in action, so it's done by June 30th also, so as to the timing of this.
Any other questions? So do you see a lot, and I don't mean to spring this on you, but a lot of other additional dollars left from the referendum that we'll be looking to spend, or is this getting to be the?
Well, right now, we are down to our last dollars, and we are looking at everything that's left and prioritizing everything else on the list to determine and like any project, as you start to have things and move in, you realize, oh, we need some shelving here that we didn't realize, so we've been meeting pretty frequently now, our executive team, and going through all those logistical pieces, and determining what some of those things are that we need to make sure we have. The good news, we are within budget and we're doing very well, and we're getting, with the new flooring and new lighting in the building and getting everything in really good shape, like promised by the referendum. So.
I think within budget is what we always like to hear, so it's a good thing if we can do some extra things as well, so. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Then the next item is contract for speech and language services. Jill Mason is going to present.
Hello.
Hello.
I came here a couple of months ago to talk to you about contracting services for speech and language therapy. For one of our providers, we only had the option through March, and so I needed to make sure. I came back and provided, that's not exactly the one I wanted to show you. Here it is. Just to let you know that it's still the same amount, it's the same provider, we just need to extend it through the end of June. So nothing really changes with this one, just asking for your permission to extend the contract through June.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, thank you. Then next is student services and instructional services update. This will be Kim and Jill.
I can keep steering.
And this is a report only.
Yes, so Jill and I are here to just kind of provide you a joint update between our two departments. Can you flip to the next one? Yeah. There you go. Really to provide an update on our district data, kind of a state of the district in terms of student learning amid the pandemic, describe some of the pandemic support structures that we've had in place, and then show you kind of the outline of our plan moving forward. So in the absence of our state assessment data this year, we took a look at some of our in-district screeners and our assessments to determine, at least in part, the impact that the pandemic has had on student learning. So on this screen, you'll see our K-5 reading. On the left, you will see our Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system, and then on the right is our STAR reading, which is actually grades 2 through 5. So the left is K-5, the right is 2 through 5. Both show a data snapshot taken during our winter benchmark window, and you will notice more variation in the years leading up to the pandemic in the Fountas and Pinnell, because we did do, in addition, update, retrain staff on some of the more rigorous standards with them. So there's a bit of variation there that is nothing to do with the pandemic. But as a result, you'll see that we did have a drop, both in the our BAS assessment, the FNP, as well as in our STAR reading this last year. Do you go to the second? Yep. This one shows us our math data, again, STAR, which is 2.5, and you'll see that we dropped to just under 45% of our students meeting at least the winter benchmark. These are always just the winter benchmark where we're taking that snapshot. We will be reassessing again here in the spring shortly. Then when we take a look at our middle school data, we're still using STAR as it is our most consistent screener, but you'll note that up in the right-hand corner, I made a note that for our students who are already significantly above grade level, they take the ACT Aspire. And that actually accounts for roughly 10% of our students already. Those kids are already doing fabulous. Even through the pandemic, they're continuing to do fabulous. So they are not a part of this data cohort. So that's going to have a significant impact on what we see here. In addition to that, we have raised, and this goes for elementary as well, we've raised the benchmark above the default for STAR because we've moved it up from 40 or 45% to a 60% proficiency in order to better predict our performance on the statewide assessments. This works really, you have to set a consistent one for the entire district. And while this aligns pretty nicely and does a good job for us at the elementary level, it is a little steep for the middle school level. And so we don't see a perfect correlation there. So we are confident that more of our students are reading on grade level than this data would show. Then we look at math, and you'll see we had a bit of a drop in scores, but definitely less significantly so at the middle school level in math. So some points for consideration. The catch is this really isn't an apples to apples comparison. So in the first place, we had a much longer assessment window. We in fact dragged it out to as far as the STAR, which has deadlines built within it, would allow us to, just to accommodate for if we had illnesses, quarantines, those kinds of things, to give staff and families a little more time to work within that structure. Also, it was delivered 100% virtually for the very first time, all the assessments. So that is a huge piece that we can't control for. We also do still have some incomplete data when we actually pull this with people who still couldn't get, despite the longer window, still couldn't make it within that. So there are some holes. And then as I said, the students who are at, there's some in the elementary, when we're looking at middle school where it's a 10% of our student population, that really has a pretty significant impact, at least on the data that we pulled for this. But really, when we look at overall impact in K-8, you'll notice that it really does seem like we had a greater impact at the elementary level, at least when we look at our district assessment scores. Reading overall shows we have roughly 10% more students who are not meeting that winter benchmark and need some more scaffolds in place to provide them with some support. Math, really a little over a 17% increase in students not meeting that benchmark and requiring us support, whereas at the middle level, really just over 4% where that was the case. As we already knew and been talking about throughout this, we do have, and we see it in the data, groups of our students who were disproportionately affected by this. And those are our English language learners, our students with IPs, and our students of color tended to be more impacted by this than others. Then when we take a look at our high school data, we have two academic measures that we took a look at. On this side, you'll see the left shows the percentages of students who are failing at least one class. So you'll see in black is terms 1 and 2, really like quarters 1 and 2 during 2019 versus terms 1 and 2 during 2020. You'll see that we had an increase of students failing at least one class, between 4 and 5%, depending on the term. And then we look over at the right-hand chart, and this is our GPA, and you'll see that we had a slight decrease in our GPA average, ranging between 1/100th to 26/100th of a point. Can you go to the next one, please? Thanks. And then this is our 4K through 12th grade district attendance data. And so what we did was we compared semester 1 attendance data prior to the pandemic compared to that same first semester while we're in the midst of the pandemic, while we were fully virtual. And you'll actually see that in most cases our attendance looks to have improved during our fully virtual instruction. So in addition to our teachers doing an absolutely phenomenal job with connecting with students, and working with them virtually. We did have a number of supports in place during the pandemic that I'll let Jill talk about.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Kim, because our teachers really went over and above to reach all of our students. And I will include more than just our teachers, our educational assistants, our counselors, our social worker, our school psychs, all of our support services, again, and we all know about nutrition services as well, and all of the other departments that we work with. But primarily, we focused on the supportive academic services that we provided. We had Holmen Care. So we had a full day of academic support and supervision for grades K through 5. We had approximately 75 students per school building, depending on the flexibility, 75 to 100 students. We partnered with the BGC, and they were able to offer about the same, so about 75 students in their facility, K-12 actually. The majority of the students were K-5 that were served, but we did have some grades 6 through 12 as well. And then once we went back to hybrid, they started offering some after-school programming and some tutoring options as well that they will be continuing throughout the summer and throughout the years. We partnered with the YMCA for our Holmen Care. And they also offered some opportunities for students K-5 and offered the before and after school care that they do as they do every year. We had supportive learning environments at HMS and HHS for students in need of academic support. So our alternative ed teachers, our at-risk teachers were meeting with students. And then specialized services for students with special education needs. So we had students coming in and receiving their special education minutes with the providers. They were also able to have some supported instruction during the times when they were the whole class was virtual. We had students that were English learners receiving the same type of services. Our school counselors met with students in person or virtually to meet the needs of students. And then we had in-person or virtual academic interventions. So we tried to really capitalize on our virtual options, but also in-person options for particular students that were in need of those services.
So this really just kind of leads us into actually our next agenda item, and this is actually will be up for consent, but we would like to, as a result of addressing some of the learning loss that's occurred, do an expansion of our summer school programs for the upcoming summer. And so we'd like to use some of our ESSER II dollars to focus in on that. At the elementary program, or at the elementary level, there are really two pieces that would be an expansion on our existing program. The first one would be that first 2-week chunk in June, that June 14th to 25th, where we would offer 2 hours of additional reading and math tutoring for those students as identified as a need by their teachers. We would then in July be running our Ready, Set, Learn, as we usually do for our incoming kindergartners, and that would then be at their home schools to start learning those routines, procedures. And then July 19th through August 5th would be our regular summer school, but we're also looking to expand upon this as well. So we, in the morning, would offer our usual reading, math, and enrichment support. And then for those students most in need, we would also have lunch and have them stay with us into the afternoon to do another dose of reading and math support to help bring those kiddos up to speed. At the middle school level, we have our regular summer school program as we've seen in years past, but middle school did something really kind of creative this year by bringing in the HMS Saturday School, where they offered 5 sessions to provide for students in real time and catch them when they needed the help rather than waiting and having to look at doing an additional summer session with them this summer. So they had 5 sessions during the winter where they addressed some of those needs already. Then at the high school program, at the high school level, we have 2 sessions, and we've kind of, Mr. Bate has structured these to be 2 very focused sessions. The first one is really focused on that on track for graduation requirements by having a fully virtual session where these are just the classes that are required for high school graduations to keep kids on track to graduate in their 4 years. The second session is completely face-to-face and is a focus on credit recovery. So those students who are come up deficient in either language arts, social studies, science, or math would come in and work with a teacher from that content area to bring those courses up to passing and then to earn that credit. And then, of course, we would continue with band, color guard, choir, and orchestra.
And
Go ahead.
I'll just add that we also have programming in June for our English learners. They have a summer adventures program that they will take part in. It's usually, I think, K-5. And then we have extended school year services for our students with disabilities in need of additional services throughout the summer. And we found through our Holmen Care and through our specialized services during the pandemic that some really, really targeted intensive services for some of our students have resulted in just huge gains in their communication, huge gains in their social and emotional skills, literacy skills. So some of our students with the most significant needs have really, really benefited from the targeted skills we were able to provide during that time. In most of our settings, we really want to provide an inclusive setting, so our students with the most highest needs are included in our classroom, and they also get targeted assistance. But what we found through the options through the pandemic is that real intensive targeted services was so beneficial. So we are offering some of those types of services this summer for our students with the most significant needs, and to be able to target some of those communication skills that they have not had the entire time through the pandemic, or in need of their academic skills or social emotional skills as well. So that'll run from mid-June through mid-August.
Are there any questions? Brian?
I do have a question. For the testing, there's spring testing that will take place. When will that happen?
In May.
In May. And so that will be in person. And so I guess what's interesting is you look at those graphs and you kind of panic at first. And I think it would be interesting to see a comparable of, again, last year's data to this year's data with the May testing, but also just that cohort, how they've done. Because I have that feeling that there might be an increase now that we've been back in person.
I'm very much hoping so.
Yeah. So would that be possible to see that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you so very much.
Okay. Actually, you can just come on the agenda, that's fine.
Next item is the Virtual Academy.
There we go.
You knew there was something.
That's okay, if you want to just get rid of this. I have my notes, I don't need that.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
So the next topic is the Holmen Virtual Academy, and you have been hearing about CRVA from me for a good chunk of this year, and CRVA is continuing to go well, so much so that we do have a number of families who would like to continue with a similar program into next year as well. So just recently, there was new legislation passed. In fact, it was the 2021 Wisconsin Act 18 that actually does now allow us to provide a fully virtual option, and also allows that for not just our School District of Holmen residents, but for our open enrolled students as well, which is kind of a game changer for us. It allows us to do that without working under a charter. So for this reason, and because we would really like to offer a program similar to what our students and families did experience this year, we would like to offer a Holmen Virtual Academy. And now, while the vast majority of our families do plan to return to the building next year, or buildings next year rather, this would allow those still wanting or needing that fully virtual option to have an experience that's very much like the online academy experience that they had this year. It would also allow them to fully remain Holmen, School District of Holmen students, and would be completely within the district. So we are asking, of course, pending enrollment, that we would, based on our anticipated staffing, look for 3 full-time teachers in K through 8, and then funds to continue to provide the extra contract stipends that we've had just like this year, to provide for online classes for our high school students as well. And then we would have an annual review on this or thereafter. Any questions or comments about that? Chris?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Where will the content be coming from? I know right now we're doing it through the state of Florida. Will this be developed in-house, or will this be something similar to that where we're
I'm
purchasing
thinking,
a platform?
for this upcoming year, we're still looking at working through the WEN network and using those same classes. I do know in talking to our teachers, they, having been through it a year, have seen some things that they would like to supplement that they think would meet our needs better. But for the most part, that would still be the skeletal system of the online program.
And Barb.
My question was the same.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Now, that's not to say if, looking forward, if this had more traction, we could definitely do something more in-house, but for now.
And this will be on the 426 agenda. So I know this is the first time we're hearing about that, so thank you. And then the next item is contracted services.
Okay. Okay, so this is the time of the year that we actually determine our services that we're going to contract with CISA for the upcoming next school year in that. So I bring this before you today, and it's for consent at our next board meeting. I'm just going to point out a couple highlights. One is under instructional services, the REACT program that they have, that is for writing. We work with them currently at our middle school with some professional development and assistance in helping and improving of writing. We are going to they're going to expand that to the high school as to why there would be an increase in that cost there. And that comes out of our instructional services budget, which they plan for that. And then the special education services, like always, we contract with that, and it's dependent on which students we have. And those amounts can vary or adjust based on, students enrolling or unenrolling and so forth, or moving. And you can see estimated on what we know right now, some of those expenses are decreasing, and actually the majority of them are decreasing, and some of them are increasing slightly. And other than that, it pretty much is very close in the same amount as last year for services. So we're looking at $159,392 to continue our services and working with CISA for the upcoming school year. Any questions?
Any questions?
Kind of
Okay.
straightforward.
And again, this is not on this evening's agenda, it will be on the next agenda. So, moving on to the consent agenda, we have 14 items on the consent agenda this evening. If you would like to have any of those pulled and considered separately, we can do that. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Okay, Brian, is there a second?
Second.
Rebecca? Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Then moving on to board member reports and discussion. I'll call on board members in the order of roll call so that they can present any comments or committee reports that they may have. Trenton?
All right. First, I just want to thank the people who came out for public participation. I always value the citizens and the students who come out here and give their input. But for my last thing, I just wanted to thank everyone for giving me this opportunity to serve on this board. It's really been an honor, and even though it wasn't the most normal term a student rep would have, I'm still so glad that I did it. It's with a bit of sadness that it is my last meeting, but I'm joyful that I had the opportunity for the position in the first place. It was definitely a great experience, and especially with how much has changed since I originally put in my rep application. It's just really cool to be a part of such a unique year for this district. And if I could run again, I certainly would. But sadly, I'm a senior, so I can't. But I wish Emily and all the future representatives good luck. And again, I thank you all. The kind words were really greatly appreciated, so thank you.
Thank you. Gary Dunlap.
Well, I'd like to say goodbye to Trenton. Nice to see you in person. And goodbye to my next door neighbor here, who's been very kind. And I'd like to once more thank the teachers for all the work they did and all the virtual learning. Like I said, one of my previous meetings, a couple of my grandkids didn't want to go back to school. They wanted to stay home because they had to get up at 6 o'clock to go to school, and they were doing just fine with virtual. And then make one more comment, and that's on the mask usage. I kind of wish she would have stayed, but the 99.9% is almost of survival rate is almost exactly the number we have dead right now in the United States, which is 564,000. So it's not a little number when the population is 600 million or so. We've had 80 die in La Crosse County. And I think we've had about 7,400 die in the state of Wisconsin right now. And it's close. We're getting close. Just hang in there a little while longer. And I think that a lot of how the kids react to the masks are related to how the parents talk to them at home and how they let them know what the importance is. Like I said, you heard me say it 100 times. I got 9 grandkids and around 27 of my sister's kids, and they all seem to be adapted pretty well. And they do find sometimes they'd come home and forget to take them off for a couple hours, even around the house. Just hang in there a little while longer, but it's very important that we finish this off without taking them off. And that's all I have to say tonight.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Chris Lau.
I don't have much. Just want to say thank you for Trenton, to my buddy here the last 2 meetings, the first 2 meetings, and then to Barb, thank you for being on the board all these years. So I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Rebecca Reber.
Welcome new school board members. We're excited to get moving on that, and good luck to Barb. Sad you're leaving. Thanks for all your words of wisdom at the school board meetings, and then also Trenton, thank you. Nice to meet you. Good luck in your future. And I just want to do a shout out to volunteers. I know they probably were very limited during the pandemic, but hopefully they can get back in the buildings and help everybody out again. But thanks again to all the volunteers throughout the year. And of course, all the extra hours that the school district puts in volunteering their time, whether they're salaried or hourly. So thank you to everybody who volunteers out there. And we had building and grounds tonight, reviewed a few policies, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Barb Wedstein.
Yeah, so I guess first, just thanks to the community for this opportunity to serve the last 3 years, and thanks to all my fellow board members, and exciting for Chris and for Jennifer Deek. And Trenton, it's been fun serving with you. And then just with our public participation this evening as well, just from my perspective of teaching, I have a combined first and second grade. I have several students with special needs in my classroom, and given it's in another district, but they're still kids, and they're so resilient. I do think, like Gary said, it's a lot of how we present it as, not only as parents, but also as staff, in a kind, loving way. And I don't see fear in them. And they're really happy to be at school. Really, really happy to be at school. And so, yeah, so I think Gary's words spoke well of hopefully just a little longer. So, and Emily spoke so well for advocating for breakfast on behalf of her her fellow students, and I think she had some good reasons there, and so I look forward to hearing how administration proceeds, with that. So, yeah. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Barb. Then Brian.
We have a SELC meeting coming up next Monday. I'd like to thank Trenton and Barb for giving me the honor to serve alongside both of you. It's been a privilege to learn what it's like to be a board member from you, Barb. And Trenton, you got a full future ahead of you. Running for office can certainly be included on that resume.
I definitely plan to do something similar.
And Gary and Barb really spoke well about the concept of wearing the masks. And again, I wrote that down. It's about perspective. As a classroom teacher in a high school, socializing is, in my classroom, not an issue whatsoever. We talk all hour. It's language. But beyond that as well, I mean, the kids are doing a great job wearing the masks. As a staff member, from that perspective, we're following guidance from the leadership who really is just stressing safety. And when they say all we need to do is a few mitigation strategies, these are what you need to do in your classroom, wearing the mask is just one of them. And really, when we look at what's happening in that classroom, it's not hindering learning whatsoever. It may disrupt from time to time just to remind the student to pull it up over their nose, but over the past 5 weeks, that has been it. They've really adapted well. The concept of the breathing, we're getting used to it. I mean, it's an adjustment, and I do believe with the concept of we only have about 35, 40 more days. Let's try to get to the finish line. Let summer happen. Get people vaccinated, and then again we'll regroup again in the fall to determine the best way forward there. It's just such an easy approach to just again helping stop the spread.
Thank you, Brian. I also wanted to thank Trenton and Barb. I know Trenton, we had the 1 year together, but I think it was a great year. I know that it started with the memorial wall, and you gave some input and guidance and from a student's perspective on that, even though we weren't able to do that in person. But I really appreciated the support, and anytime I reached out to you, the feedback you would give. I know there were a couple times I had asked questions and you responded, and I appreciated that. And you have been very well spoken here at the board meeting as well, and via Zoom. Barb, over the last 3 years, it has been a pleasure to get to know you and your perspective, and you do ask some hard questions, and those are perspectives that we've needed to have. We can't always have a homogeneous board that doesn't have that kind of someone that's playing a devil's advocate. So thank you so much for doing that, and I think it's made us a better board, and so I very much appreciate that part of it. I know you also mentioned breakfast. I was going to ask also Dr. Mueller and Mr. Sackett to maybe share some information with us as a board about that process. That's not a board level decision. That's something that's done at the administrative level, and just share some feedback on that. I think the board is curious to hear more about that. And those are the kind of things we look to our student rep to share with us and to bring forward. So I did want to share that. I know the mask thing was a big thing tonight, and I can't wait till we can get rid of these masks as well. But I know that we are following what the county advisory are. There's a number of different agencies that's why we're doing what we're doing, and even to be able to take them out, like WIAA, they're the ones who have the rules about masks for sports, correct, Dr. Mueller? They're the ones who decide whether masks need to be worn during sports or not. It's not. Guidance. Yes, so they have guidance, right. So I think we all are looking forward to that. You hear what's happening in Michigan, and I had this conversation with my granddaughter. I said, what happens in the school? How good our students and our teachers and all of our staff do with the protocols is going to determine our ability to continue to do in person. We could have huge numbers of cases out in the community, but if we don't have numbers in the school, then we will continue. I think that is the message we receive from the administration. We'll continue to be in person as long as we're able to keep those outbreaks out of the schools, out of the district. And so that's why washing hands, masking, social distance as much as possible is important, and I think why we are where we're at. But as Gary said, I anticipate the masking not being something forever, as has been suggested, but I don't think that's the case. I know there were a couple comments this evening that, and I don't want to get into a Facebook conversation or war or anything here, but I would mention that I have reached out 3 times to Jennifer Wesley and approached her 3 different times via email and never heard a response. I have held my tongue this year quite a bit. I would note that the Facebook post that I do is my personal Facebook post. It does not represent the board. When we vote here in the evening is when the board makes decisions. Maybe I could have been more diplomatic in my comment that I made after the election. But as I said, I don't want to get into some kind of Facebook war. I would like to mention a comment that was raised here tonight and also in the private parent page about troubling beliefs. It's been asked a couple times, well, what are those troubling beliefs? Things that we saw, and again, it was not by any one person, it was by a number of individuals. But comments that were made such as, there isn't racism in Holmen, that transgender students somehow might be a threat to other students, that treatment of marginalized students wasn't something that we needed to worry about, comments about how hard our teachers worked or actually didn't work, and that they didn't deserve their full pay last spring and fall, that somehow education stopped, that we didn't care about students, that they were just a financial commodity to us. I could go on. Oh, the CTE program. We have an outstanding world-class CTE program in this district, and it was suggested that we're not doing enough in the trades program, and we have a world-class program. So those are a few of the troubling beliefs that I saw out there. And I know the pandemic, emotions were high. It was a very competitive school board election, and so it has been. Add all of that, it's been an unusual year. And while Chris, as an incumbent, winning does say something about the direction that we are moving in the district and that people, for the most part, are happy with that, I would acknowledge that there is a significant number of people that aren't happy with the direction we're moving, or maybe aren't familiar with why we're making decisions we are and that sort of thing. And I think we need to be respectful of that and acknowledge that there is a number of people who maybe disagree with us. And we have to continue. Dr. Mueller, she will attest that over and over again, I say we have to include all of our stakeholders in all of our discussions. And so it will be our responsibility this next year to reach out to some of those folks and include them in discussions and seek their input. It's really important, but I did want to read the remainder of my post. I hope, oh my gosh, it's not there. It was about, hold on, I'll get there, because I think it was the best part of my post. Is that now is the time to heal and move on. We have much work to do. I'm looking forward to working with Chris and Jennifer in our quest to provide a quality educational experience for all students in Holmen. Holmen Viking proud. So that's how I would leave this evening. The next items on the agenda, I would just note that the 26th is the board organizational meeting. The 10th and the 24th of May are our upcoming meetings. We do have a senior recognition night scheduled, which is awesome, in the Fine Arts Center, our beautiful new Fine Arts Center, on the 26th, a retiree reception on the 27th, and graduation on the 29th of May. So I would also note that you received a copy of the election results, and I think this Thursday is when they will be doing, is that correct, Thursday? Tuesday. Okay, the canvassing on Tuesday. Okay, thank you. That is tomorrow, right? Yes. So then, with that, I would ask one of the board members if they would be willing, Brian is shaking his head, would you be willing to read the motion for closed session?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby moves to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. In this case, base wage negotiation and the district administrator's evaluation. Roll call vote.
First, I need a second.
I'll second.
Chris, got it? Okay, then a roll call vote. Stacy, if you would just do, I don't think you need to do it in a mic. So it's a yes or no?
Yes.
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 Okay, motion passes. We will go into closed session in about 3 or 4 minutes, as soon as the room closes.
So Trenton.